Hey, what you reading for?
Hello, today I am doing the Valentine's Book Tag, which is an original tag created by Jolene at Bookworm Adventure Girl, inspired by J.D. Dunn Reads and Writes. I'll leave the appropriate links in the description box. I am here with my Valentine, Zvyezda, and I have my cat scratch sweater on in case she decides to confuse my body for biscuit dough, what she likes to do. This tag consists of 4 prompts that are romance related, and with each prompt I will name 3 books, and I'll try to combine a variety of genres.
Don't leave me, no. Help. The first prompt is called Be Mine, and it asks me to name my favorite queer romance books. Now, queer romance is not a genre I'm well read in. Last year I did read Song of Achilles, which was amazing, 5-star read. Poor girl.
So the first prompt is Be Mine, and it asks me to name my favorite queer romance books. Queer romance is not a genre I'm well read in, although I will name 3, and start with Song of Achilles by Madeleine Miller, which is not I don't think it's a queer romance, but it is a queer love story, and it's spectacular, 5-star read. Boy meets boy, they become friends, and then as they grow older, they become lovers, then they go off to war. It's historical fiction, and it's fabulous. I will also name a play by Emma Donoghue called Ladies and Gentlemen, and this is from her collection of plays called Selected Plays by Emma Donoghue. And this play is fantastic. I talked about it in my video, Books That Made Me Cry. And I'm not talking about tears running down my cheeks. I'm talking about like tears like ejected from my eyes. Just so powerful, this play. I like Emma Donoghue a lot. And this year, I will name a book that is on my TBR. Because this year I decided I would try to read outside of my normal genres, which are literary fiction and horror. So last month I read Normal People by Sally Rooney, romance book, and it was good. It was okay, but I didn't want my only romance experience of the year to be so. I wanted something great, and viewers recommended I check out Tal Bauer. So I looked him up, and he has a book that went right onto my TBR, and it is queer romance, and it's called Gravity. And I'm looking forward to reading that maybe next month or maybe in April. And what appeals to me about this book is that it is set in Quebec, which fantastic setting. I haven't read a book set in Quebec in quite some time, and I want to check it out, even in a work of fiction. And it also is about a hockey player. I know really nothing about hockey, so I enjoy reading books about professions or hobbies or just environments that I'm not familiar with. Allows me to experience something new, maybe learn something. So we'll see how that goes. Gravity by Tal Bauer. Next up, we have meet cute, which is a term I had to Google. I don't know what that term means, meet cute. But apparently it's in a romance book or a romance movie when the characters, they have their first encounter, and it's kind of quirky or fun or funny, and it develops into a relationship or a love affair. So this prompt asks me to name a book or 3 books that I would like to experience again for the first time. So I've chosen 3 books for 3 very different reasons. The first is The Road by Cormac McCarthy, and that is because the first time I read this book, I was in a very bad place mentally. And a friend of mine tried to give me this book, said, "Oh, Michael, you need to read this. It's fantastic." And I said, "I can't read it right now because my head is a mess. I won't be able to enjoy it." And she said, no, this is like a post-apocalyptic father-son, you would love this, definitely for you. I tried to refuse, but she was insistent, so I ended up reading it. But it would have been impossible for me to enjoy it. I was just in a bad state of mind at that time, so I read the book and I didn't enjoy it, unsurprisingly. But I know that it's a classic. A lot of people loved it, so I wish I could go back and read it again for the first time, and in a better state of mind where I could enjoy it. The next book I would like to go back and read for the first time, for very different reasons, is The Prophet by Kahil Gibran. He's a Lebanese-American writer, poet, painter. And I read this book when I was a teenager, maybe 13, 14 years old, 15. And it is a book essentially of poetry prose, really short, simple and sweet. And I loved it back then when I was a teenager. I thought it was spectacular, very simple, and it had heart to it. But now, decades later, I'm afraid that I'm just too jaded by life, too cynical. If I were to try to read it now, I would not be able to appreciate it. So I wish I could go back and read it for the first time and be able to appreciate the simplicity and the heart that it has. Maybe one day I will get past my jadedness and my cynicism, and I will be able to appreciate the simple things again. That would be nice. And the third book I will name is Haroun and the Sea of Stories by Salman Rushdie. Again, a 5-star read for me. And I did have the opportunity to read this again for the first time almost. Back in the 90s, I was at a yard sale, and there were boxes of books, and one of them was this Haroun and the Sea of Stories. It was for like 10 francs. I mean, this was before the euro, right? So this is in France, obviously, and this was Haroun et la mer des histoires. So I pick up the book for like 10 francs or 5 francs or something ridiculous like that. And I loved it. It was beautiful. And then maybe 7, 8 years later, I was living in Brazil. And I thought, oh, my girlfriend at the time, she would love this book. So I went to the bookshop and I picked it up and I gave it to her. I said, I'll read this. You would love it. It's definitely your thing. And she said, no, I don't want to read it. Instead, why don't you read it to me? So in the evenings, I would read like a chapter or a few chapters like that. And that was a great experience because the first time I read it in French. And then a few years later, I was in Brazil reading it in Portuguese. So it was like experiencing it again for the first time. And this book, Haroun and the Sea of Stories, there is a lot of wordplay in it. It's a fantasy book. A kid goes off to magical lands. There's a lot of wordplay in it, and I thought the French translation did a fantastic job with that. And when I was reading it in Portuguese, I was blown away. I was like, hey, all of the wordplay works in Portuguese too. So even though I love this book, it's one of my favorite books of all time, I have yet to read it in the original English. So I think I still have the possibility to go back and experience it again for the first time, almost in a different way. Next up is The Friend Zone. These are hyped books that a lot of people love, but for me, I just wasn't able to love them like other people do. So for me, they're just, they're okay. They're pretty good. But I couldn't take it to that level that a lot of other people have. I'll name 3 books, one horror, one fantasy, and one literary. For horror, I will name All the Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones. This is a book that won the Bram Stoker Award for Best Horror Novel of the Year. I see it come up on lists all the time of great horror books from the last 10 years. And I thought it was good. I mean, it was okay. It didn't really do that much for me. Not particularly inventive enough for me to get passionate about. There were some good scenes, but it wasn't scary. It didn't really demand of me any emotional or psychological investigation. Just kind of okay. The other book, a fantasy book that everyone loves, and I thought it was pretty good. It was Neverwhere by Neil Gaiman. This is kind of a Alice in Wonderland-ish in the underground of London, like an underground world in London. In this adventure, a guy goes on an adventure with these fantastical beings. That's a really terrible description, by the way. But yeah, this book was fine. It was fun. I liked the characters. I liked the adventure. But I was surprised at the hype about it. I didn't think it was that good, you know. Apparently, there are a few different editions of this book. There was the original UK version, and then it was when it was published in the United States. Apparently, they cut out a lot of the jokes. Is what I hear. I read the original UK version, and the jokes, like, none of them landed for me. It was kind of a cringe aspect of the book. So if I were to go back and read it again for the first time, I would choose the edited version, the American version where the jokes are cut out. I don't know, but that's my only Neil Gaiman experience, aside from a few short stories. And yeah, it was good, but I didn't love it. Just friends. And thirdly, a book that I should definitely have loved. It seemed like a book right up my alley, and that is The Secret History by Donna Tart, which again I see come up on a lot of lists for best dark academia. And it's people doing dark things and then having to hide the secret and then compounding the problems. And it's literary, so it should be the kind of book I loved, but I thought it was okay. I wasn't able to connect with any of the characters. It's not that I disliked them or liked them, I was just indifferent about them. And the pacing was a bit off for me sometimes, so it wasn't that pleasurable of a read, but it's not bad. I think for dark academia, I think there's better. I think Hangs a Man by Shirley Jackson is much better. But that's a topic for another video. Right? And lastly, we'll close with something positive, with Friends to Lovers. These are, or Enemies to Lovers, excuse me. These are books that I didn't think I would like, but I ended up loving. Now, this is a tough one, because if I don't think I'm going to like a book, the chances are I'm not going to pick it up. I'm not going to read it. However, a few years ago, another friend, he tried to give me another book by Cormac McCarthy, A Blood Meridian. He said, Michael, you would love this book. And because of my experience with The Road, I said, no, I'm not really interested in Cormac McCarthy. It's not really my thing. But he insisted, no, Michael, you will love this. It's dark, it's literary, it's your thing. And I tried to resist, but he insisted and he won out. I took the book and I read it and I loved it. Yeah. Which just goes to show that I would probably love The Road too if I were able to read it in a better state of mind. Also, in the Enemies to Lovers, I will also name a book that there's no reason why I should have loved this book, but I definitely did. And that is A Head Full of Ghosts by Paul Tremblay. This book is YA or borderline YA, and I usually don't connect with YA. And it's a book that's about demon possession. I hate demon possession or exorcism books like that. That is not at all for me. I find it just lacks inventiveness. I'm also really upset that exorcism is a thing in pop culture, because exorcisms are real and they're a horrific form of child abuse. So the fact that exorcisms are used as a pop culture trope, just baffles me, especially in this age of cancel culture and sensitivity readers. How is exorcism something that can be exploited in pop culture? So this book had nothing that would appeal to me. However, everybody was telling me I should read it. And so I finally gave in to the peer pressure and I read it and I loved it. And it turns out that Paul Tremblay, the writer, it is about exorcism, but he addresses the fact that it is a form of child abuse, and that when when a child is sick, either physically or emotionally or psychologically sick and needs proper treatment, that this exorcism is a bad thing, and in the family that imposes it, that's where the real horror is. And he does a very good job explaining that, not in a ham-fisted way, but of just showing that and addressing the reality of it, all within the context of a supernatural pop horror book. So chapeau, Mr. Tremblay, because he demonstrates that you can have a very successful, loved book, pop horror book, and it can be about exorcism and still be responsible about it. So really like that book when there's really no reason that I should, but yeah, it's fantastic. And last on this list is The Valley of the Dolls by Jacqueline Suzanne. And this book I read a few months ago, and I picked it up because I knew the title. I knew that it was a big hit in the 60s. I thought it was a horror book. Just the title, Valley of the Dolls, it had my mind go to horror. So I thought, oh, let me check out this horror classic from the 1960s. I started reading it, and I realized quite immediately that it's not a horror book. Valley of the Dolls is about 3 young women who go to New York City with the ambition of meeting men who will buy them furs. Right? It's like a supermarket aisle gossip magazine novelization. Like not at all the kind of thing I would think I would enjoy reading. I am not the target reader for that. But I ate it all up. Loved it. Loved it. Fantastic book. And why? I have no idea. It's just a lot of fun. Just a lot of fun, over the top, but actually kind of real at the same time. So there it is, the Valentine's book tag. Check out the original creators, Bookworm Adventure Girl and J.D. Dunn Reads and Writes. Links in the description box. Thank you for watching. I'll see you at the next video.